Hello, everyone, and welcome to another movie review. I am happy that you can join me today. If you are new to this channel, click the subscribe button below for future notifications and updates. Click the like button to share this content with other movie fans. As a self-published writer, I am always interested in learning as much as I can about human nature. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to watch the documentary titled Louis Theroux Inside the Manosphere. It is in the top 10 this week on Netflix. It started streaming on March 11th. It was directed by Adrian Choa, and the running time is 90 minutes. According to Google, Inside the Manosphere is about, quote, the growing network of online alpha male influencers and the red pill ideologies they promote to young men, end quote. In the movie, you see their audience is male, around the age of 15 to 30. I am familiar with Louis Theroux, but this is the first documentary of his I have seen. I am also familiar with the Manosphere, but I knew very little about it. So what I saw is a series of interviews Louis gave where he traveled to see influencers in Europe and here in the U.S. So the first guy is H.S. Tiki Taki, and he is a Brit who lives in Marbella, Spain. And what I noticed right away was in a Spanish-speaking country, because Tiki Taki has a lot of money, he has been able to create this English-speaking environment. Now, Louis is basically there interviewing these influencers, doing more interrogating as opposed to having a back and forth conversation. And you realize these influencers are making themselves out to be hypocrites. Louis is just turning the camera on and asking questions. So the next two guys that Louis interviews are located in Miami. You have Justin, who is a friend of the Tate brothers, famous in the Manosphere. Justin is a multimillionaire, and he too is selling what you call traditional ultra masculinity and the idea that men are valuable depending on how much money they have and how many women they can have sex with. And they have convinced themselves women don't want equal treatment. The third guy Louis interviews is Myron, one of the co-hosts of a YouTube show called Fresh and Fit. That interview takes an uncomfortable turn when Louis tries to interview Myron's girlfriend, Angie. Myron makes it clear he is the leader in the relationship. He's the boss. And he is allowed to cheat and sleep around. His girlfriend is not, and she needs to get with his program. Louis asks Angie if she is okay with that, and you see Myron separating Angie from Louis with the excuse that he is the famous one, so he is supposedly protecting her privacy, which to me is bullshit. Angie is a kept woman who is not entirely aware of what Myron is, in terms of what's going on up here. The last person Louis interviews lives in New York City. His name is Sneeko, and at the time Louis shot the movie, Sneeko was banned from YouTube. That's how reckless he is. But what makes the Manosphere dangerous is a few things. Besides having a young male audience who are impressionable, you also have the fact that Tiki Taki and Justin were raised by single mothers. So there is the issue of the absent father. Another disturbing thing is many of these influencers are anti-Semitic. Whatever problem occurs in the world, in the economy, they blame the Jews. Even though these influencers are running their own scams, so to speak, in order to build their wealth. And then there is the outright disrespect for women and seeing women disrespecting themselves and encouraging this kind of behavior from the men. So I am going to give this movie 2.5 out of 5 stars. I was waiting for Louis Theroux to reach out to men who have been negatively impacted by the Manosphere. The problem with the Manosphere is it is selling this it is selling the idea that if you buy what these men are selling, you will get yourself out of the matrix. Louis lets these guys hang themselves. Like I said, they make themselves out to be hypocrites. You see that the Manosphere is not outside the matrix. It is a matrix. They think they got themselves out of the matrix because the more money they make, the more freedom they have so they can do and say whatever they want. But freedom comes with responsibility. I say this all the time. Justin is an example of when freedom comes with responsibility. He has a girlfriend pregnant 3 times. Okay, at the time that Louis shot this movie, she was pregnant with their 3rd child. But yet, she is okay with being his wife without having the title of wife. And his girlfriend is okay with him sleeping around and having threesomes as long as she lives comfortably as a pretend housewife. Because of this manosphere, people forgot the real definition of what the Matrix is and what it meant to take the red pill. Freeing yourself from mental slavery will not lead you to a manosphere. It will lead to a Christ-like state of mind, loving your neighbor as yourself, loving one woman the way Christ loved one church, being of service to society and accepting people as they are. Not only are these guys anti-Semitic, they are sexist and homophobic. They are also nonsensical. If you think this is logically, if you think the manosphere is logical, it's not. The manosphere does not make sense, even though it seems to make sense on the surface. Even if you use math, mathematically speaking, the manosphere does not make sense. What do I mean by that? These influencers are telling their audience to make as much money as possible, to sleep around and rack up as high of a body count as possible. Tiki-Taki showed Louis a video on his phone of a random woman giving him a blowjob, all for the sake of racking up views on social media. Even though he has no respect for these women. There is a video on YouTube where Myron told a former fan of his that men should strive to sleep with at least 50 women. I wonder if Louis ever saw that video, but I did find something on video where a guy said, "Look, I used to be a fan of yours. I used to watch every episode you made for a year and a half. And what you're saying is wrong." And he gave reasons why Myron was wrong all along and how he ended up suffering for it. Anyway, let's apply math here because numbers don't lie. When it comes to numbers, it just is. So, let's say you live in a fictional town. And we're going to keep it real, even though this town is fictional. We're keeping it real. Now, subtract everyone under the age of 18 and over the age of 60. Subtract the gay population. Take out the married female population because you expect wives to be faithful. And now you are down to 100,000 women, single between the age of 18 and 59. And let's say in this town, women outnumber men. So 100,000 women, 80,000 men between the ages of 18 and 59. But keep in mind, married women are expected to be faithful. Married men are not expected to be faithful. So this 80,000 men include single and married men. If you take Myron's advice and each man sleeps with 50 women each, and men have a tendency to be territorial, they don't want another man's sex partner. If each man sleeps with 50 women, okay, do the math. That's 4 million relationships to satisfy 80,000 men. Now, if the 100,000 women in town take turns and sleep with all 80,000 men, and each man is able to sleep with 50 out of 100,000, how many sex partners would each woman have? Your answer is 40. 40. How did I get 40? 4 million sexual relationships divided by 100,000 single female sex partners between the ages of 18 and 59. Now, let's factor in preference. We're keeping it real. Men prefer young women. In other words, they don't prefer women my age. So let's say the 80,000 men between the ages of 18 and 59, married and single, decide they are all going after the single women in town between the ages of 18 and 29. So we took out the single women between the ages of 30 and 59. Now, let's say, for instance, in this town, you have 20,000 single women in their 30s, 20,000 single women in their 40s, 10,000 single women in their 50s. Why? Because the older you get, the less of a guarantee life is. Princess Di died at the age of 36. Marilyn Monroe died at the age of 36. So it kind of makes sense that not every woman is going to live to see menopause. So yes, it does make sense that there are only 10,000 women between the age of 50 and 59. So that leaves 50,000 women between the ages of 18 and 29. 80,000 men going after the 50,000 single women in that age group. If every man takes Myron's advice and sleep with 50 women out of the 50,000 single young women between the ages of 18 and 29, each woman in that demographic would have a body count of 80. The body count literally doubles from 40 to 80. If you leave women between the ages of 30 and 59 alone to be celibate. And here's the thing, single and divorced women have been saying this on social media. A lot of straight men don't like women. When Justin and Myron tells Louis, I love women, that is not true. They love having sex with women. Otherwise, they expect women to clean. No joke. In the movie, Tiki Taki has one woman in the house. When he introduces her to Louis, he called her the dishwasher. When Louis was talking with Myron, he told Louis Angie was going to go clean. He sent Angie to go clean. As I mentioned, I wanted to see Louis interview men who woke up and realized the Manosphere was a terrible illusion that hurt them instead of help them. I also wanted to see Louis do some kind of analysis as to where the Manosphere came from and why the Manosphere is popular and financially lucrative. We know how and why the feminist movement was formed, but where did the Manosphere come from? How? Why? Is it a backlash from the feminist movement or to the feminist movement? If it is, women are not to blame. Men are to blame. If the Manosphere came from childhood trauma and having absent fathers, women are not to blame for that either. Men are to blame. You see, men create other men's miseries. Men also create boys' miseries. Okay, so I feel bad for these teenage boys coming up because they are not being led in the right way. I also notice a lot of these influencers in the Manosphere are Trump supporters. Louis doesn't go into a deep dive as to why these men support Trump, but that was also a missed opportunity on Louis's part. So by the time you get to the end of the movie, there are more questions that Louis did not ask. So that is all for today. If you saw Inside the Manosphere, let me know what you thought of the movie. I will see you next time with more movie reviews. Take care.